Bandwidth for the Hauger History Class podcast was graciously donated by Podbean.com. Welcome to the Hauger History Class podcast for students. This is episode 1. Spain claims an empire, the 8th grade level of social studies in the California State Standards. And we're going to talk a little bit more today about the empire that Spain claimed, the influences that it had on Portugal, surrounding nations in Europe, and the colonial impact around the world. To help prepare for an upcoming quiz in our actual physical class, write down 5 key pieces of information for at least 5 points throughout this presentation and podcast. These points will be collected and selected as open note quiz questions from which I will formulate an assessment to see how well we were paying attention and how much we gained from this exercise about learning about Spain's empire. The first note you probably want to jot down is that in 1493, Spain claimed a large empire in the Americas, of course following on the developments and discoveries, however intentional, by Christopher Columbus the year before in 1492, where I assume he sailed the ocean blue-green. Although I think they usually just say blue. A vocabulary and key people that we're going to talk about in this lesson, the line of demarcation, the Treaty of Tordesillas, Mercantilism, what is a conquistador, and the key figures that we will study, Hernando Cortes, Montezuma, and Francisco Pizzaro. And of course, this is an abridged summary to pair along with your notes from class. So let's talk a little bit about trick or treaty. See what I did there? The line of demarcation in 1493, Pope Alexander VI, he issued this line of demarcation, which essentially said that Portugal could claim all of the non-Christian lands east of this imaginary line, and that Spain would control all the non-Christian lands to the west. Portugal felt that it was unfair. It decided to make a deal with Spain to change the line some 800 miles farther west. This was called the Treaty of Tordesillas. Oh, I'm starting to get hungry. Oh wait, that's tortillas. Sorry, let's be respectful about this. The line was drawn again. It was changed. So the line of demarcation after the Treaty of Tordesillas saw that Portugal would claim most of the eastern part of South America, most notably the recent Olympic host in Rio and the nation that we now know as Brazil. Europeans wanted to explore and claim America for 3 main reasons. With these increased expeditions that Europe would take, they were looking to spread Christianity, to expand their empires, and to become rich. And who doesn't want to be rich, right? Well, countries would use mercantilism to gain wealth. That means they would garner and assess and access, both assess and access, very important to be paired together, not really, raw materials, and they would get these trade markets going where they would trade their raw materials, fashion them into goods, or trade them with countries that had the expertise to know how to do those specialties, and that would fuel economies around the world and make demand for those raw materials go even higher. If you were to look at a map or Google search the Treaty of Tordesillas, you'll notice the 800-mile change in demarcation in the original line and how much more of Brazil that was carried by Portugal. And of course, we know that historically, Portugal has a huge impact on modern-day Brazil, stemming from these early days of 1493. Mercantilism was involved, and the goal was to increase countries' wealth by creating a favorable balance of trade. Countries must export more than they import. Think about that in terms of your own house or even your own backpack. You can only fit so much. So if countries can export their products, they can make more on their goods. And if they can maintain the amount of things they produce domestically or inside of their own country, they can increase their profit and create a favorable balance of trade. You want more money coming in than you're going out and spending. Think about what you would do if you get an allowance. You can't expend more than you earn. So you can also, if you are a country, take over lands to increase wealth and profit and increase your supply of those important natural resources. How many days did it take to get around the world? Well, Amerigo Vespucci, in these earlier days before our modern powered motors, tried to find a sea route to Asia and provide details about the New World to his home nation. Vasco Núñez de Balboa, he found a way from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean through Panama and the Panama Canal, still a very important travel route today. Ferdinand Magellan led an expedition that made it all the way around the world. So it took the strength and the knowledge and transportation and trafficking of maps and building on earlier people's ideas and people who were explorers that were extremely adventurous and that risked a lot to go and explore these new territories that paved the way for modern day trade and the colonies that we now look at in our social studies books. Let's talk about Montezuma. Conquistadors explored all over the world and ended up coming to the Americas and conquered them. Hernando Cortes, he led the move to conquer the Aztec Empire. He formed alliances with enemies of the Aztecs, and Cortes marched toward the Aztec capital and their leader, Montezuma. So Montezuma, the leader of the Aztecs, was faced with Hernando Cortes, this conqueror who was coming to take over the Aztec Empire. When you hear about Montezuma's revenge, this is what we're talking about. Cortes and Montezuma saw a somewhat friendly relationship become tumultuous and fall into fierce battles. After being pushed out of the Aztec Empire, Spain regrouped and marched toward Tenochtitlan. Spain would conquer the Aztec Empire with the help of an invisible weapon. And I'm not talking about some kind of a Pokemon power or some kind of a mystic Nintendo element. It was disease. Bacteria, to which the native Aztecs had no resistance and had never been exposed to before, making them extremely effective and extremely deadly. What about these so-called little Spanish fleets? Francisco Pizzaro conquered the powerful Inca Empire for Spain. Spanish success in North America was caused by three things mainly. You'll hear it often written, just like the famous book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. The three methods are the spread of European diseases, superior sailors, soldiers, and weapons, and alliances with North American enemies of the Aztecs and Incas. Think about it. If you were trying to come into a new nation, separate and destroy, you would pair with the natural enemies or the already existing conflicts. Pair with the enemies to take over the area in which you were hoping to conquer. Another thing happened during this time, the gold rush. Spain was setting out all over the world to find these cities of gold. Spain would explore the southwest, southeast, and California looking for this so-called city of gold. While Spain conquered North America, the rest of Europe would start expeditions to America as well. It's just like when you see someone that has something really cool in class, don't you go out and look for it the next time you're shopping for school supplies? I don't know, it's been a while for me, but I was just trying to bridge the gap there. But I certainly understand when I see a 4K TV, it might be nice to go out and get a 4K TV. By the way, I just got a 4K TV. All right, back to social studies. Beginnings of slavery also stems from this era. Our history is rooted in this unfortunate tradition. We're going to talk more about slavery in upcoming editions of our 8th grade podcast. But for now, that's a quick recap about how Spain claimed an empire in the Americas beginning in 1493. This is Mr. Hauger and hope you enjoyed this short episode. Make sure you tune in to the Hauger History Podcast on iTunes or at haugerhistoryclass.podbean.com. Follow us on Twitter for all of the latest updates, and I'll see you back in class again.